This week on Inside the Headset, we're featuring Anna Caruso, the in-game strategy and data research student assistant at the University of St. Thomas. Coach Caruso discusses her experience growing up as a coach's kid, her current role with the Tommies, and the relationships built with other women in the profession. If you like this podcast, make sure to follow us wherever you get your podcasts, and don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel to watch new episodes each week. Now, let's get inside the headset with Coach Caruso.
Coach Caruso, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing excellent. I'm excited to have you on here. And, I know you're right in the middle of a softball season right now. One of the few guests that we've ever had in the middle of an active athletic season, especially it not been football. So right now you're currently a freshman at St. Thomas, and you're part of the softball team. How's your experience going at this moment?
It's fantastic. I am super happy that I decided to come to St. Thomas. I've had a very well-rounded education so far, in terms of my education in the classroom, also outside of school, on the football field, and also on the softball field. I'm loving it. I have a lot of different communities I'm a part of, and I love it here.
Yeah, that's awesome. You got a very unique situation for yourself. Coach Caruso here is not the only Coach Caruso stomping around St. Thomas campus. Your dad is the head football coach there at St. Thomas. And, just wanted to dive in and kind of see what it was like. We talk a ton about, family and faith and this and that on the podcast, all that kind of stuff. And very rarely, we're always talking to the actual coach about, what's going on within their family. Very, very seldom do we actually get, a student athlete that is, actively underneath a head football coach. So you grew up in this profession, and Coach Caruso has had the great opportunity to kind of be at St. Thomas for a while. I forgot what his job was prior to that. I just talked to him at the convention, but he had another job where he was there for about 9 years. So he didn't have to move. He's kind of been in the same location. But you grew up with a father and coach, and knowing the hours, knowing all the things that kind of go along with it. What has your experience been like being a child of a coach?
I think it's a special opportunity, especially as now one who's coaching for him, also being an athlete my whole life. When you get to live in the house and go through the same routines that this head coach is going through, you get to learn what all our football players here at St. Thomas are learning on the field, off the field, in their meetings. I've gotten the chance to experience that since I can remember, and it's pretty unique. And one thing about my dad is he coaches the exact same way that he raises his family, raises his kids.
Yeah. And
I think that's really unique. And some people laugh at that, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. He's so harsh. I can't believe that. I'm like, it's an unbelievable opportunity. It's been really awesome, and I'm pretty grateful for that. And so growing up as a coach's kid, you often hear coaches talk about their favorite kids to coach are coaches' kids, just because they get it. They may not be the most talented,
right,
but they just get something different about being a teammate, being a hard worker, about the culture, about positivity and leadership and stuff. And so the chance I've gotten to have that since I can remember is incredible.
Absolutely. Well, it's funny you say that, and I just want to kind of echo what you just said there. We had Coach Caruso, your father, speak at the 35 on 35 group, and you joined him. That's where I got to meet you at, and I can't count him. I mean, 5 or 6 times in the middle of that. He's super intense. He's getting into it, and he's like, and what's next? And you're just finishing his sentences for him. And so I pretty much could kind of tally up that pretty much he's saying the same thing, like you said, at home that he's saying to his athletes, and as he was pouring into those coaches. Now, you just real quick, obviously it's not a softball podcast, but I do want to brag on you a little bit. 2-time letter winner, captain of Cretin-Durham Hall softball team, 3-time letter winner in basketball, all-conference senior basketball season. Made the President's Honor Roll, member of the National Honor Society, very well decorated student athlete in high school. Just living in that coach's atmosphere. Did a lot of that pour into you? Clearly, you were very successful on the athletic field. Did you deem yourself, although it wasn't the same sport, like a coach's kid? Did that help you out with being a great teammate on a basketball court, being a great teammate on a softball field, knowing what it takes to, get the most out of yourself and your teammates? Did that kind of help you out?
Absolutely. I think the biggest benefit for me during my high school careers of basketball and softball, being a coach's kid, and even my mom's done a little coaching, even if it's been youth coaching. And so having parents that have been coaches, being able to come home after practice or after the game and debrief and not just talk about, how'd you hit today at practice? Did you make your layup today at practice?
Right.
But being able to talk about team dynamics, and when I sense a problem in our culture, being able to discuss it with my parents, long conversations each night, how to bring people on my team together, how to encourage people, how to motivate people. That for me has been the biggest benefit. And so even though, the lessons you learn in sports and at the basis of coaching don't just apply to your one sport. Yeah. There's so much more to being a great coach than being able to teach the X's and O's of your game. And so those things are applicable across the board.
I love it. Yeah, you're exactly right. And so I definitely introduced this podcast off with you as Coach Caruso. So you not only are currently playing softball for the softball team, you are also an active coach for your dad. What made you kind of get intrigued with going down this coaching path, especially on the football side, during, I guess, what I assume is your off season? Besides having a dad that's the head football coach, what made you want to go and give this a try?
Yeah, so I actually didn't know that I was going to be the in-game strategy and data analyst for St. Thomas until the day before our first scrimmage this season.
Okay.
I knew that if I was coming to St. Thomas, which was not forced upon me, it was by my own choice, that I wanted to be a part of the football program and this culture, this environment, be around my dad and his coaches and players, no matter what that looked like. And so when he presented me with that, I was like, sure, I don't know what this entails, but I'm up for it. And you're not going to give me a task that I can't handle. And the main thing, I wanted to be around my dad. I wanted to be around this culture and continue to learn. I've always heard about it. My dad coming home at night telling us about his program. I've been around the program. I've been helping. Growing up, I would help the managers and the trainers pick up equipment, drive the cart around, fill waters. So I've been all through all that, and I wanted to elevate my experience here. And so I was like, coaching, like, this is, I don't know. I haven't dove in yet in my life into the X's and O's exactly of football. And so I can't be a position coach quite yet. If I later would like to pursue that role, I have the opportunity to be educated on that. But for now, I'm doing the data and strategy stuff here.
Absolutely. And now in regards to that data and in-game strategy stuff, just give us a brief description of kind of what your in-game role and adjustments that you're kind of a part of, how you communicated, or maybe like a example dialogue between you and your dad or you and the staff in the middle of a game.
Mm-hmm. So this is a system that we've developed over the course of the last 15, 16 years. It was something that I was introduced to just before the season, and something my dad says he doesn't feel comfortable sharing this system with anyone outside his bloodline. And so he had created this role, and I had set the qualifications, you could say, for it. What will go on, it's not in-game, it's not technology, it's just on my clipboard, and I'm charting about each of the team's offenses in trying to look ahead, use not only the data, but also a little bit psychology, a little bit of intuition, and not only looking at the literal the numbers, but also the tendencies of other players, teams, coaches, etc. And what that will look like, me and my dad will meet after each drive, talking about what I saw, how we can be better, and if something is so pressing and so alarming, we'll let the defensive coaches know what's going on and what we've been observing.
Absolutely. Now, obviously, you've been around the game for a long time. Watching your dad do it now, you're actually on the sideline with Coach Caruso doing the same thing with them on Saturdays. And I don't know at what point, but within the last probably decade, you kind of had football on one side, and you had this analytical world that looked at these analytics on the other side, and more. I mean, you're starting to see a lot of integration. You're starting to see coaches make actually make a play call based off what the analytics say they should do, where that hadn't always been the case. Now once again, I know you kind of just got called into this role here recently, so you don't have the strong history of just that aspect of how analytics and football come, but came together over years. But do you continue to see roles like this becoming more and more popular across the sport? Like, clearly, what you do brings value. You guys were 12-0 this year, or 11-1, something like that. I know you had a tremendous season and couldn't go to the playoffs because of the transition to FCS. But clearly this role brings value to not just St. Thomas, but lots of football programs across the country. Do you see this continuing to grow and become a more popular role amongst staffs?
Absolutely. And when I tell people, so my majors, my intended majors are data analytics and psychology. And I think although they may not be paired often, I think they go hand in hand. And as this role of data and data analytics is growing in sports and even outside of sports, in businesses, companies, all those things, there's also that missing piece. It's like, if everyone is using the same data, you will be able to start to predict people's decisions. And that's where we believe that psychology to intuition piece comes into play. It's a tricky balance.
Right.
How much should you go with your gut? How much do you go with the data? And it only comes with experience. That's something that I've learned throughout the years. The data will be telling me one thing, and my dad will kind of teach me and push me along and say, hey, are you noticing these patterns, these trends? And for example, this coach. And I think as I will move along into next season, and throughout my life, that was something that I will continue to get better at and grow in. But I see it's a tricky balance between the data and the numbers, and then your gut.
Yeah, and you know what? I love that you say that, because I've been intrigued with this over the last 3 or 4 years as it's become more and more popular, and it's so weird with a lot of coaches there. They have a guy, or woman on the sideline with a humongous binder, flipping through all this analytical data. Hey, it's 4th down at the minus blank. You should do this. This is what the book says. And then you have other coaches that are like, no, I would never use that. I want to use my gut. And basically, how you just explained it, there's this great opportunity to definitely use the best of both worlds, right? And have that balance to be able to know the analytics and say, you know what? I know what analytics say, but right now we need to punt the football. All this kind of interesting stuff like that. So I love that you kind of said that, because I feel like that's becoming a little bit more prevalent as well. Now you mentioned that your intended major. Once again, you are a freshman in college. Is your aspirations long term to actually be a coach? Football, softball, or you have this interest clearly in data analytics and analysis and psychology, or are you seeing yourself going down a different path? Where do you kind of see yourself as of right now? Things change, as we all know.
Where I'm at right now, I can see coaching in my future someday. I just hope that I'm blessed enough to, in these next 3-4 years at college, to find what I'm passionate about. And right now I think that is coaching. But as you said, that coaching role could be in football, continuing with the data side or scouting side, etc. Or that could be in softball, maybe even basketball, coaching my kids sports someday. I don't know exactly what that coaching role will look like, but for now, in the football world, I am on the data side of the coaching, and I do have any opportunity here, as my dad being who he is. If I would like to explore other roles within the football team, football program, outside of data, maybe that's breaking down film, maybe that's whatever the case may be. So I'm curious to see what the next 4 years may look like, and I may not know till the day before our first scrimmage, like I did this year, what my role for next year will be. So
I gotcha. Well, we have a lot of young coaches that listen to the podcast, and they're trying to find their way through the profession. And oftentimes I ask the question, to a longtime coach, hey, what was a challenging thing your first time you were offensive coordinator? What was a challenging thing, the first time you were a head coach? Just to maybe help bridge the gap for our young coaches, and maybe they can learn a lesson prior to. You got thrown into a role the day before the season kind of got rolling this past year. What was maybe something that was a little overwhelming? What was something that took you some getting used to? And what were some of the things that were a little bit more natural to you?
I would say compiling all of the data in game. I have a lot of different columns, categories of data to be keeping track of. And so that's just that first and second scrimmage or game, getting used to that.
Yeah.
I would say the most challenging part that I touched on a little bit earlier was, okay, once I understand where my numbers go on my chart, how to do this thing, pulling in that intuition and picking up. So each game, as we go along the season, there would be a new additional task given to me by my dad of, hey, will you mark down how many times the quarterback punts? Will you write down how many times the coach called a play to his sideline? Things like that. And those started to help me find the patterns in the game, and growing from here on out, being able to do that on my own and continue to expand in those patterns outside of the data, for me personally, will be what I will be growing in next.
That's awesome. Well, once again, I got to meet you here at this past convention, and I also got to meet a bunch of wonderful young women in coaching, and they're starting to be more and more on the sidelines, but we're still far away from I think where we all want to be at when it comes to that topic. Tell us about some of the relationships that you're building and some of the things that you're doing to help the progress from that aspect.
Yeah, so at the conference, I was fortunate enough to be introduced. I was introduced to Coach Mickey Grace from UConn. She coaches there, and she introduced me to a whole group of fantastic young women who I'm sure these are the ones you met as well. We meet monthly over Zoom, and it's a very select group of women, a very tight group of women who are all looking to advance things forward for women in football. So we've had one meeting so far. I met Coach Mickey in person. We had a couple hour long chat. It was fantastic. And this group has given me so much insight and knowledge and opened up my vision, like where I think I don't see many women around me when we're coaching or at our opponents' teams. And there is so much hope for these women. And I think the biggest thing, if you're a woman out there listening, is find other women, keep encouraging, we need to keep educating one another. And to the male coaches out there, is we didn't grow up, I grew up in a football family, but 95% of these women didn't grow up playing football around coaches, around a football team. And so we don't know as much. We're a few steps behind. And so just for male coaches to humble themselves and be willing to offer their education to female coaches who all we want to do is learn and grow and have those same opportunities as you. We have less abilities right now, but we're coming, and soon we will have just as much ability.
Yeah, I absolutely love that, and I fully support that. I look forward to working with you and Coach Grace, and with other women in coaching here more and more as we move forward into the future. This has definitely been a unique podcast for us, as once again, not from the woman aspect, as we've had several on, but more from the active student athlete that is spending their off season on sidelines and traveling with the football team and impacting decisions that are made in the game. So I've totally enjoyed it. I definitely appreciate you sharing with us. Now, I know this is a little bit unique, as you are, like I said, an active student athlete, but if you want to share your social media, just so people can keep up, if you have a coaching specific Twitter account or anything like that, if you want to share that with our with our group, so they can reach out and also keep up with your coaching journey and even your softball journey. Hopefully you're killing it out there. Please share that social media account now.
On Twitter, it's at Anna Marie 4242. ANNAMARIE 4242.
Awesome. Well, we'll make sure to add that to the show notes and make it easy to find. And I definitely look forward to keeping up with your journey, and look forward to seeing your dad and yourself there at the convention this next year. And like I said, just doing a lot more with the major movement and with women in football coaching. So appreciate your time, and best of luck in softball and then spring ball and then this season. And look forward to seeing you next January. Okay.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, no doubt. Thanks for listening to this week's episode of Inside the Headset. If you heard anything on this episode that you would like to learn more information about, head over to afcapodcast.com, where you can find every episode and all of the corresponding show notes. While you're there, take a second to rate, review, and subscribe to the podcast. If you have any questions, comments, or suggestions for the show, please let us know by sending an email to podcast@afca.com. Make sure to follow the podcast on Twitter at Inside the Headset and tag it when you share each episode. You can stay up to date with all things AFCA by following the @WeAreAFCA Twitter account. Every episode of Inside the Headset can also be found on your favorite audio streaming platforms such as Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and YouTube. If you are not currently a member of the AFCA, be sure to find us online at afca.com and apply to join over 10,000 NFL, college, and high school coaches from around the country who are striving to be the best they can be. With an AFCA membership, you gain invaluable access to the annual AFCA convention, the bi-monthly magazine, and the new and improved digital library, which contains thousands of videos and articles contributed by hundreds of current and former football coaches. You can also visit afcainsider.com to sign up for our free weekly email newsletter on the right-hand side of the screen. It comes out every Tuesday at lunch and is filled with great articles and stories written by many of the same coaches you hear on the podcast. It's geared to help you become a better coach tomorrow than you are today. Be sure to connect with me on Twitter at Coach Mario Price. And remember, the AFCA is not just an annual convention. It is an association that continually promotes education, guidance, and networking. But it is also so much more than that. The AFCA is about celebrating the past and educating the future. It is about developing great coaches who will produce great teams and even better people. So invest in your skill set and impact today by engaging with the AFCA.